What's the difference between the OTbase OT asset management software and ICS Detection products? Which product is right for you? This is what I'm going to discuss in this video. When you consider to introduce a software product for OT security and asset management, you may wonder how our OT-based software compares to other offerings. Actually, that is quite easy to explain. On one side, you have a basket full of ICS Detection products with vendors such as Nozomi, Clarity, SCADAfence, Otorio, and many more. All these products are pretty much identical, both in feature set and technology, and may be difficult to distinguish from another. On the other side, you have OTbase, which is decisively not an ICS Detection product for several reasons. It has a different value proposition, targets different use cases, and uses different technology. Let's explore the differences in detail. The core value proposition of ICS Detection products, which is basically what you expect to gain when buying these products, is to detect OT attacks in network traffic as they happen in real time. This is what you pay for. The prototypical ICS Detection user is the SOC analyst who analyzes alerts generated by the ICS Detection product. Why do you need an analyst? Because these alerts are not directly actionable per se. They need to be interpreted by trained experts who determine if an alert is a false positive or a potential indication of malicious activity that must be investigated further. In order to fully take advantage of the detection capability, those experts must be available 24/7. After all, there is no point in receiving an alert on Friday afternoon and acting on it no earlier than Monday morning. In order to orchestrate this activity, additional software products such as a ticketing system is needed. For a reality check about the support infrastructure that is needed to operate ICS Detection software, listen to Accenture's Rebecca Moore in her talk at the S4 conference.
A level 1 OT SOC analyst could cost for that skill set about $50,000. So we have 8 of those. Level 2 OT SOC skill set could cost around $100,000, and there's 4 of those. And then your level 3 OT SOC person could cost around $150,000 for that skill set. Now, keep in mind that an employee's wage is not actually the fully burdened cost to you as an employer. Usually that's about half of their wage added on, so I'm adding that on in hidden costs here. Also, we'll add another $120,000 approximately for your SOC ticketing software annual fees, the building costs, and then your SOC's equipment costs. So what looks like around a $1 million run and maintain annual fee is more like $1.6 million if you're a one-site company, or if you have 10 sites, $225,000 per site.
Let's compare this with OTbase. OTbase is a general-purpose OT management tool that serves various use cases besides OT security. Compared to IT, it will probably match with products such as Manage Engine, Qualys, Device42, PRTG, or SolarWinds minus the security holes. The core value proposition of OTbase is to save you time for everyday course of managing complex OT environments. Relevant workflows extend beyond OT security and particularly stretch into engineering and maintenance. Different from ICS Detection products, the major problem that OTbase solves is not the timely detection of a potential cyber attack. It's keeping control over complex OT infrastructures with shrinking headcount and a need to work from home. Even though our heritage is in OT security, we designed OTbase for a much broader set of use cases. Today, with a minimal number of cyber attacks against OT on the record, it can be argued that the labor cost that OTbase can save you in engineering and maintenance hours is higher than damage caused by potential cyber attacks, especially when accumulated over time. Fact is that today, OT networks are often more complex than IT networks, so there is even more to be gained by using proper management tools and workflows. Let's look at a couple of typical use cases outside of cybersecurity where OTbase provides value every single day. An asset inventory is at the core of OT management and is produced automatically by OTbase using active asset discovery technology, which I'll explain in a couple of minutes. Compared to the majority of companies that still use a manual process to produce and maintain static inventories in Microsoft Excel, the workload is reduced dramatically and accuracy is much higher. What's the value of this? As an example, think about processing vendor product notifications. As an engineer, you will most likely not be overly happy to spend a lot of time figuring out which of your systems are affected by the latest advisory from Rockwell, Siemens, Cisco, and others. Locating these systems becomes a matter of seconds with OTbase. Filter your OT inventory for the respective model and version, see the list of affected devices, including locations and serial numbers, and export that list to Excel with a click of the mouse. Then send that Excel list to your coworkers in order to act on the advisory. A complete and accurate network topology diagram is another piece of vital information that presently is not available to most engineers. Drawing topology diagrams manually in Visio is the method of choice for most, but is just too labor-intense for complex networks. With OTbase, this process gets automated based on layer 1, 2, and 3 connectivity data that is automatically pulled from your network infrastructure. OTbase produces interactive topology diagrams from this data that you can rearrange, search, and also export to Visio for sharing it with coworkers and contractors. Change management is exercised in IT for decades and now also enters the OT realm in the interest of mastering digital complexity. OTbase informs you right away about any recent changes, lets you track a device's configuration history, compare the present configuration against the baseline, and use a structured change management workflow with different authorization levels. For networks, you also get informed about new devices on the network, and you can check which devices were added to a network after a specific date. OTbase also includes tools for plant planning, such as IP address management and switchport management. Obsolescence management is supported by curated metadata that shows which of your installed products are beyond or about to reach end of life or end of support. With all that being said about non-security related use cases, OT security remains a strong focus of OTbase. But what OTbase does in the security realm is fundamentally different from ICS Detection. OTbase supports you in building up a preventive shield against cyber attacks. In order to do that, you don't need threat intelligence, and you don't need detection capabilities either. OTbase helps you to identify your most vulnerable systems and networks. It helps you to verify and audit which of your critical assets are not protected as required, be it because of a lack of planning, non-compliant implementation, or random configuration drift. The security philosophy behind OTbase is based on the observation that the number of cyber attacks against OT systems is extremely low. Thank heaven. With this given, investing your cybersecurity dollar in detection of extremely rare events doesn't make a lot of sense. Imagine you could turn back time. 10 years ago, when Stuxnet was all over the news, you could have invested in an ICS detection product that alerts you about OT attacks. Or you could have invested the same budget in building up a baseline OT security capability supported by an OT management system. Which approach would have yielded better results after those 10 years? Well, the answer is obvious. In the United States, there were no OT attacks during the last 10 years. The few real-world attacks that we know of happened in exotic places in the Middle East and Eastern Europe. There were also no OT attacks on US soil pre-Stuxnet. Not 20 years in the past, not 30 years, never. In other words, your ICS detection product would only have shown false positives. Your OT management system, on the other hand, would have helped you to identify and fix insecure network architectures, patch vulnerable engineering stations, update obsolete operating systems, and much more. In other words, your security posture would be significantly higher. Rather than wasting time in analyzing false positive alerts, you would have come a long way. As one example of the OT security functions in OTbase, consider the elaborate vulnerability management workflow. OTbase informs you about new vulnerabilities as they drop in and features various analytics for determining where patching yields the most reduction of cyber risk. In addition, you get a wealth of analytics for spotting deficiencies in your security patch regime. Finally, let's look at some distinct technical differences between ICS Detection and OTbase. All ICS Detection products use passive sniffing to gather real-time network traffic, which is then processed by deep packet inspection and anomaly detection algorithms. OTbase, on the other hand, uses active discovery. It does not use deep packet inspection at all, and I'll explain the rationale for this in a different video. Active discovery means that OT-based discovery software probes OT devices in a network using legitimate industrial protocols. All these various protocols, such as Ethernet IP or Profinet, come with dedicated commands to solicit device configuration data. In other words, that's the intended way to identify automation devices on the network. Naturally, it's also what is used by software products from the large automation vendors. OTbase simply does what Rockwell, Siemens, and others do to obtain asset data the way it's designed into the technology. The benefit of active discovery is much more detailed and more accurate results. Using active, OTbase can build out the network topology, determine missing security patches, accurately list serial numbers and firmware versions, and much more. Understanding how OTbase is different from ICS detection products is not difficult. Actually, the differences couldn't be bigger. Armed with this knowledge, it won't take you long to determine if OTbase matches your requirements or if an ICS detection product might be better for you. OTbase covers a much broader range of use cases than ICS detection, some of them pretty mundane, such as IP address management. Its value proposition is to make your team more efficient, allowing you to successfully build and maintain complex OT networks with lower headcount and a need to work from home. As far as OT security is concerned, OTbase focuses on prevention rather than detection of OT attacks as they happen. OTbase is a solid alternative if you are left unconvinced by the wealth of ICS detection products. For more information on OTbase, please visit langner.com/ot-base.